Hey there, I'm Sheila. I'm 26 years old and I just served my mother-in-law and husband with the best revenge I could for their torture of me. But before I get into that, I want to tell you a little more about my husband, Justin, and I. Justin and I met in college. We were part of the same club and happened to strike up a conversation. We had really great chemistry and I really liked him. He asked me out on a date and I said yes. Obviously, I had a great time and that led to only more dates with him. I found myself developing bigger feelings for him, and thankfully he felt the same way for me, so we made it official and we became a couple. In every sense of the word, Justin was great. He was understanding of my needs and he was caring. He showed me he loved me in everything he did, and I knew that he was going to be the one that I married. But before we got to the point of marriage, we needed to introduce each other to our parents. My parents loved Justin and accepted him and the role he played in my life. The same could not be said about Justin's mother, Sandra. Sandra was a single mother. Justin's dad left the second he found out that Sandra was pregnant with Justin, and after that Sandra raised Justin all by herself. So I understood why Justin respected his mother over everything and why the both of them had such a strong bond. My issue was obviously not with any of that. The first time I met Sandra, she looked me up and down and scoffed. She then proceeded to point out all my flaws, both physically and personality-wise. The entire time she did that, Justin never said a word. He just kept silent and let me deal with Sandra's mean remarks. I kept my mouth shut, not only because I had to show her respect, but because I was in so much shock that I didn't know how to respond. Justin and I got into an argument after that because I did not like how he did not stand up for me. Justin told me that Sandra was just being overprotective and did all that to make sure that I was the one for him. I thought it was particularly cruel, but I let it go. But then Sandra began inserting herself into our relationship. By this time, Justin and I had graduated. Around this time, I received some inheritance money that my grandparents had kept aside for me to be given to me only after I graduated. So I invested that money in a house. And Justin and I moved in together. Sandra would constantly come over and she'd make mean remarks about me whenever she saw me. I reached my limit eventually and told Justin to tell his mother to back off, or we were done. I don't know what or how he told her that, but she stopped coming over after that. Justin and I went right back to being great after that. In fact, we even got engaged. Sandra obviously had an issue with that, but we ignored her. We got married around 6 months after we got engaged. We were happy and super excited to spend the rest of our lives together. But all my dreams came crashing down when just 3 months after getting married, Sandra showed up at our door with many bags. Oh, hey, Sandra, what are you doing here with all these bags? Are you going on a trip? Oh, no, I'm not. I wanted to come here. All right, but why all the bags? Is everything at home all right? Everything's fine. I just realized that I needed to be here with Justin. What? Why? Did something happen to him that I don't know about? It's not that. I just don't think that you're taking proper care of him. Excuse me? And that's why I'm moving in. I'm sorry, but you can't just move into someone's house like that. You're right. But this is not just someone's house. This is my son's house, and what's his is mine, and therefore I get to do whatever I like here. That is not how it works. And what do you mean by I don't take proper care of Justin? Look at him. He goes to work with the wrinkliest shirts and he looks thinner than a stick. You don't look after him like a good wife should. Justin is a grown man who's perfectly capable of taking care of himself. He doesn't like me ironing his clothes. In fact, he doesn't even care about the look of his clothes. He got thinner because he's been running a lot and wants to start running marathons. I'm taking perfectly good care of him. That is absolute nonsense. You don't know him as well as I do. You don't love him in the way that I do. Of course I don't. That would be weird. You know, you could just talk to me about these things instead of just moving into our house, right? Oh, yeah? If I did that, you'd promise to do things the way I ask you and then only follow through for a maximum of a week. Then we'd be right back to square one. Moving in will allow me to take the best care of my son. I don't think Justin is going to be happy about this. Nonsense. That boy loves me and would never say a word against me. She was not wrong about that. Before I could stop her, Sandra let herself into my home. Justin was not at home, so I called him to tell him about his mother's intrusive behavior, and he promised me that he'd deal with her when he got back home. However, when he got back home, he never said a word to her. Of course, we fought it, and he told me that his mother was only looking out for him. I didn't have an issue with that. I had an issue with Sandra forcing herself into my home and treating me like I was not good enough. Justin assured me that his mother would leave after a few weeks. Against my better judgment, I believed him and let it go. Sandra became a nuisance. She would constantly critique everything I did and would always put me down for not being a traditional housewife. It was very funny coming from her, considering she herself had been a working woman, so I didn't understand why she had to put me down for working as well. I always kept my mouth shut and listened to everything she said. I did whatever she asked me to do, whenever she asked me to do it. I never complained, only because I was waiting for the day that she would leave. Except that it never did. The few weeks that Justin promised me turned out to be 3 months. I was reaching my limit with Sandra. One day, after a particularly tiring day at work, I came back home to Sandra yelling at me for not mopping the floor, and I snapped a little. "Sheila, why have you not mopped the floors? Do you want my son to be walking on filth?" "I had a really rough day at work." "Oh, boo-hoo. You think you're having a rough day? Then imagine what my son is going through." I don't mean to undermine Justin's work, but he works a desk job while I'm constantly running to and from sites in the heat. I barely get any time to sit and take a breath. I think I earn the right to say that I had a rough day. If you want to complain, then maybe you shouldn't have a job. If your job gets in the way of you taking care of my son, then just don't work. How do you think we're going to pay the bills? I earn more than Justin. Are you emasculating my son? I know that he's the one that pays for everything. The only reason that he uses your money is because he has to pay all the bills, while you get to spend your money on yourself. Sandra, I really do not have the time or the mental capacity for an argument with you right now. If you don't want arguments, maybe you should just be a better wife. That's the reason I moved in with you both. Clearly, you don't care enough for my son. So you'll leave if I prove myself to be a good wife? Sure, but I doubt that you ever will be good enough. You do realize how messed up that is, right? You can't just force me to do things with the promise that you'll leave. If that is what it takes for you to be a better wife to my son, I don't care about how morally right or wrong things are. Now, are you going to mop the floors or not? I just came back home from a 10-hour shift. I didn't even get to sit down because you started yelling at me. At least let me catch a small break to eat. Those are privileges that are earned. You do your work as a good wife and then you get to rest. And what will happen if I say no? I will make you pay for it. I'm too tired of your nonsense. I'm going to bed. Good night. The audacity that Sandra had to assume that I did nothing was astounding. She had no idea how hard I worked. Look, I would never underappreciate Justin's work, but he did not earn anywhere close to what I made. And on top of that, I was the one that paid the majority of the bills. Sandra had no idea about what the inside of our relationship worked like, and she had some gall to expect me to do even more work after I got back home. She did make my life even more hellish after that conversation. She would purposely make food only for her and Justin, or only clean their messes and leave mine, or even just make my messes a lot worse. She would yell at me for the tiniest things, and even went as far as to convince Justin to not talk to me for a week after she and I had another fight. I would talk to Justin about it, but while he would agree that his mother was being a bully, he would never say anything to her. I let it all go and focused on doing my own thing, but then I started to notice several Word documents go missing. I would miss important deadlines because I would never be able to find my things. It got to a point where I was told that if I messed up one more time, I'd be fired. It didn't take a genius to figure out who was messing with me, so after I was warned at work, I came back home and lost my cool on Sandra. Are you messing with my paperwork? I have no idea what you're talking about. Don't try to act like you don't know what I'm talking about. I told you that you'll pay for not listening to me. Do you have any idea what you're doing? No. Do you have any idea what you're putting my son through? What are you talking about? My son has to live in filth and do his own laundry because you can't do your duties as a wife. Sandra, I'm at risk of losing my job because of you. How are Justin's issues worse than mine? Good, then you can finally treat my son right. My son is going through so much more than you can imagine. If he was, he'd talk to me. He has not said a word as yet, so I don't see why you're telling me this. It's because you've put him in a position where he can't ever say a word against you. You did this to him. I have never once even implied that he has to be scared to come to me about his issues. You're just inserting yourself into our relationship. I have to. My son can't stand up for himself, so as his mother, I'm doing it for him. You're standing up for nothing. There's nothing wrong. In fact, the only thing wrong is you, because of your meddling. We have absolutely no time for each other. Good. I don't want my son spending time with his no-good wife. Okay, you know what? You can get your way. If you don't want him spending time with me, so be it. But don't expect me to do my wifely duties when he won't do his husband's duties. You're lucky to have my son for a husband. He does everything for you, and you can't even do something as small as his laundry. Whatever. Just stop messing with my work, because if I lose this job, Justin and I will be on the streets. And I don't think you want your precious baby to be on the streets, do you? Are you threatening me? Think whatever you want. But if I catch you messing with my work again, I will do something that will have you begging me for mercy. Sandra went crying to Justin about what I'd said, and he berated me for talking to his mother that way. But I was so angry that I didn't say a word to him. I kept my word and made sure everything was divided. I watched as for the next month and a half, Justin and Sandra struggled to juggle between meals and paying for half of the household expenses. Sandra was too proud to apologize to me, and she made sure that Justin never apologized either. Eventually, I couldn't see both of them starving themselves, so I caved and decided to go back to the way things were, but not before talking to Justin about how upset I was with his mother and that I expected him to ask her to move out. Justin, I've kept my mouth shut about your mother for a really long time, but I've reached my limit with her. What are you talking about? How do you not see the way she bullies me? Oh, come on, it's not that bad. Are you serious? I never can catch a break because she's always yelling at me to do something or the other. It's come to a point where I do nothing outside of work and household chores. It's been 3 months since I even went to meet some friends. Look, you know my mom has some very traditional values. You just have to get used to it, especially now that she's staying with us. You mean since she's forced herself into our house and our lives? She just loves me a lot and only wants the best for me. I know, I got that very clearly, but that isn't an excuse to treat me like crap, especially under my roof. You mean our roof? Your mom has made it crystal clear that you and I don't share things, and since you never speak up or stand up for me, this house is mine. You can't punish me for what my mother does. You think I want this? You have no problem when she bullies me and when she messes with my things. The day that you stand up for me, we'll be sharing everything equally. So what? Are you going to split everything now? If that's what it takes for you to stand up for me and throw your mother out of our house, sure. How can I just throw my mother out like that? I hate to put you in this situation, but you need to choose between me or your mother. You can't do that. You're putting me in an impossible situation. Am I really, Justin? I'm not asking you to stop talking to your mother. All I'm asking for you to do is tell her that she can no longer live in my house because of how she's been treating me. That's so cruel. I never expected you to do this. What's even more cruel is watching your mother torture your wife and still not speaking up. She's been messing with my work, and I told her that if I catch her doing it again, I will make her pay for it. I'm giving you the same warning. If you don't speak to her and get her to stop before she does something worse, I will make you pay for it too. I hated that I was putting Justin in this position. I really loved him, but I also knew that I did not deserve to be treated this way. Justin and I didn't speak to each other for a long while after that, but I still knew that he never spoke to his mother about her behavior. Sandra's treatment of me only got worse. She made my life absolute hell, and it took everything in me not to snap. She did not realize just how much I loved her son to be able to bear with her. But then she messed with my work again. Since I caught her before, I decided to be smart and install cameras around my office. I made sure to confine all my work-related items in there, so if she ever did mess with it, I'd have proof. One day, after another particularly bitter fight with her, I went to take a shower. Sandra took that time to walk into my office and rip up the project papers of one of my biggest clients. When I went into my office after my shower, all I saw was a mess of ripped up paper all over my floor. I saw red. Thankfully, I had backup saved on my laptop, but I was not going to let her go. I didn't confront her because I saw no point in it. I decided that I was done, and I called up one of my friends, Leroy, who was a lawyer. I explained my issues with Sandra and Justin with him, and he told me that he'd come over the next day to talk in detail about it. Leroy showed up the next morning, and Sandra was the one that opened the door to him. Justin joined her shortly after to see who was at the door. Who are you? Oh, I'm Sheila's friend and her lawyer. Hold on. What do you mean that you're her lawyer? What he means is that I'm suing both of you. What? Why are you suing us? Sandra, you messed with my job once again, only this time I was smart enough to install cameras in my office. I have proof of you stealing and ripping up my project plans. That's hardly a reason to sue me. Oh, that is. What you did right there was damage to property, and I'm also evicting both of you. What? What do you mean that you're evicting us? This is Justin's house too. You can't do that. Oh, your precious son didn't tell you? I bought this house with my money, and it's only my name on the deed and title. I have been paying the mortgage and for all the upkeep. Your darling, hard-working son hasn't paid a cent towards this house. Is what she's saying true, Justin? Yeah. And you've been harassing me for months, causing me mental distress, affecting my work and my pay. Okay, look, can we come to a negotiation of sorts? Absolutely not. You put Sheila through hell, and no amount of negotiation will come close to what she deserves to get out of you. So what? You expect us to pay her as reparation? Oh, absolutely. But I don't have any sort of money to pay her. That's why we're taking you to court. The judge will help decide how to sort this out. Sheila, you're taking this too far. I warned both of you about what would happen if you mess with me again. Neither of you listened. Now you have to pay for the consequences. Let's go, Leroy. We have more things to discuss. The both of them just stared at me in shock. But I walked away and took Leroy with me into my office. We worked out all the legalities, and Leroy told me that he'd file the paperwork as soon as he could. He assured me that in a week or so, I'd be able to hand an eviction notice to Justin and Sandra, and they'd be summoned to court for everything else. I also obviously filed for a divorce. I wanted nothing to do with Justin. I was ecstatic to finally be done with the two of them. In the week that I waited for the eviction notice, Justin and Sandra kept approaching me about dropping everything, but I refused to budge. I had been nice to them for so long, and even after I repeatedly told them that I did not like the way I was being treated, they never listened. Why would I listen to them now? I could tell that what I did was affecting them a lot. I began noticing how both of them were barely eating, and both had dark eye bags from lack of sleep. I even heard them get into a fight where Justin tore into Sandra for making his life miserable and ruining the one good thing he had. It was sad to see that it took me doing all this for him to finally stand up for me. But it was too little too late, and I was already set on leaving all of this behind. After I handed them the eviction notice, I moved into my mother's place until they cleared out. I gave them a month because I still did feel some pity on them. Aside from that, they also received the court summons, and after weeks of trial, they were ordered to pay me $50,000 in reparations. I don't know what kind of payment they settled on, but I was glad that my suffering was not all in vain. Sandra and Justin moved out before the court order came, and I finally got to live in my house without any conditions. The divorce is now underway, and I'm going to make sure that everything is divided equally. Justin tried to ask for alimony, but that was quickly shot down when the judge found out what he had done to me. Sandra, of course, never learned her lesson and still texted me to tell me what a horrible person I was to put her son in such a horrible position. She blamed me for her deteriorating relationship with Justin, and I honestly couldn't help but laugh. I saw no point in explaining to her why she was wrong because she clearly didn't see any fault in herself after everything that happened. So I just blocked her, and I'm moving on. It'll be a while before the divorce is finalized, but all I know is that I'm finally living happily. I got my revenge, and I got my freedom. Life can't get better than this, eh? I'm only looking forward to what more I can do now that I'm not being held back by people. Wish me all the best of luck.